All right. So good evening, everyone. It's a very small group. There are only four of you. So please make sure to utilize the time that we have. We spent about an hour discussing the Lambda function. I'm very happy with the way I've created the content because I've spent the entire day on it and I have created everything from scratch, right? Okay. Now, of course, it's going to be hands-on. So I'm not just going to show you the theory and the slides. Yes, we will be covering live examples, but the reason you notice that there are some comments that I put here and there is because this is the type of a topic that you can't just learn by trial and error. This is not like a VLOOKUP or a SUMIF or a pivot table that you can just pick up just like that, right? So it is important for you to understand what it is as well, right? Okay. First things first, what is the big deal about Lambda? Rather than me telling you how important Lambda is, I want to show you how important does Satya Nadella feel Lambda is. So Lambda was introduced last year in 2021. And you can see that he himself posted everywhere on LinkedIn, on Twitter, in interviews, and spoke about the importance of Lambda. And the big takeaway here is that Lambda has now made Excel as a programming language, something called Turing complete, right? I will not get into the details here. You can Google it if you want. But basically, the idea here is that if it's a Turing complete programming language, and most languages are Turing complete, it allows you to create your own algorithms on it, right? And this should give you validation as to how important it is to learn Lambda, right? Okay. Now, the term Lambda is not unusual to Excel. It's not specific to Excel. As you can see, Lambda is a term in programming that we use whenever we want to create an anonymous function. The basic idea here is that if I write VLOOKUP, you notice that it is already an inbuilt function that we have. But what if I want to create a function of my own? How do I do that? Initially, the only way to do that would be to learn programming. On Excel, you can use Visual Basic or you can use JavaScript. But with Lambda, you are able to build your own functions without learning any programming, and you will see how that works. But just wanted to show you that Lambda is not just something which is specific to Excel. As you can see, Lambda works on literally all languages. So we have it on JavaScript, we have it on C++, we have it on Swift, PHP, right? Like this. Okay. Do keep in mind that Lambda is not available on all versions of Excel. So it is only available on Microsoft 365, Microsoft 365 for the Mac, and Excel for the web. If you're working on Excel 2013, 2016, 2019, even 2021, you will not see this function called Lambda. You will only have this available on Microsoft 365 or Office 365. Okay. Now, from the official website, what it says is that it's a way of creating custom reusable functions, and you can give it a name that you want, right? And they work almost like native Excel functions. So the way you use a normal VLOOKUP or a SUMIF or an index, you can use Lambda as well, right? Now let's look at our first example. If I want to find the square root of a number, I'll just do these things from scratch, if that's okay. If I want to find the square root of a number, what would I do? I will just simply type equal to SQRT, right? And we know that this works, right? It gives us the square root. What if I want to find the square of a number? It's not difficult, but it still requires you to write a formula. So I have to either multiply by itself. So F7 multiplied by F7 gives me 144, or I have to say 12 to the power of 2. That gives me 144. Now you might say, but Havish, what's the big deal? Like, these are not too difficult to do, right? Of course, I can multiply by itself or raise it to the power of 2. But this is just an illustration. Think about something more big and complex. The problem is that if you want to use something repeatedly and it's a complex formula, copy and paste is not really the correct way of doing it, right? Now see what I do. Okay, first let me delete the one I've already created. And we can do it from scratch. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to write equal to Lambda. Now, Lambda is very simple because it only has two types of arguments or parameters in it. there is a parameter and there is a calculation, right? If I put another comma, you notice the arguments are just the same, parameter, calculation, right? So what is the parameter? That means what is the input that we're seeking from the user? So I want to call that input as input. Now we want to apply some type of calculation on it. That means in our case, we want to multiply the input by itself, isn't it? So what I will do here is I will simply say input multiplied by input. Now, if I simply press enter, it will give us a calculation error. This is a new type of error in Excel. The reason is because a Lambda doesn't work like it. And I'm sure you will see why not. Because this doesn't make any sense. The moment I write input multiplied by input, I haven't selected any input, is it? That means I want to choose this cell, right? So F11 as the input. So to test the code, I can write it as F11. Now this itself is a very interesting way of working with an Excel formula, because usually in Excel, after you close the last parentheses, we all know that we can't just open another parenthesis, correct? But this is an exception. In a Lambda, if you want to test the formula, then you write the entire Lambda and then you put the test variable or the input in a parenthesis. Now you notice it gives us 144. But obviously, I'm not going to do it every time. So how do I save it as a part of my Excel workbook so that I can reuse it repeatedly? Very simple. I will just have to copy my formula. So if you notice, I'm just copying the entire thing. Control C. We go to formulas and then we go to name manager. In the name manager, I will create a new name. I want to call it whatever I want. In this case, I'm calling it square. And I'm just going to paste my Lambda here. So you notice I have gone to the name manager. We have selected a name called square, which refers to Lambda input multiplied by itself. Now you notice that just like we have a function called VLOOKUP, now if I write SQ, do you see this? I also have a function called square. How cool is that? Now in the square, there is only one argument, which is the input. So I will select my input, which is the cell F10, and you notice it gives us the result like this. Any questions so far, anyone? Of course, I'll show you some more complex examples. This was, of course, a very simple illustration. I'll show you a detailed example so you can see the possibilities of Lambda. But any questions that you have so far? Right, so quick recap. Lambda is a general computing term, not specific to Excel, but it's a very big change that has happened in Excel because now Excel has become Turing complete. Like the interface hasn't changed, but the way we compute things on Excel has changed. And because we have Lambda with us, we are now able to create our own formulas and save them as a function like this square. And I can then end up using it. Now, I also wanted to show you how to do this on Visual Basic. Because before we had Lambda, remember Lambda only came like a year back. Before we had Lambda, the only option I had as an Excel consultant was to write Visual Basic code. Right? So let me show you how to do that. So I go to developer, I select Visual Basic. And do you see this, everyone? In my module, I'm writing this code, which is very similar to the Lambda. I'm creating a function. What is it called? It is called square underscore variable. But there is only one input, isn't it? So I'm saying that my input is called myval, which is an integer. And what is the final output? My final output is myval multiplied by myval. So it's quite similar to the way we did it on the normal formula, what we are doing in Visual Basic. But then this was so much more complicated. One is because this is programming, right? This is not just like an Excel formula that you can write. So you have to learn programming to be able to build your own user-defined functions like this. As you can see, I have a lot more UDFs that I've created. For example, if you look at these are all user-defined functions I've created. And this is not the general Excel user's cup of tea, because why would the general Excel user know how to make all this? This is all programming, right? The advantage of Lambda is that now I'm able to do most of the simple tasks that earlier I used to do on programming without having to actually learn programming, right? Like this. Okay. How to save a Lambda? I have a screenshot here. I will also send this file back to everyone. So you go to formulas, name manager, click on new, give it a name and save it, right? Okay. Then we have the advanced formula environment. So let me explain what this is, right? So what Microsoft has done very recently, this happened about 5-6 months back, is that they have added an advanced formula environment. And the way it works is that if you have a lot of code with you, the best way to see that is not by going to the name manager every time. Because in the name manager, you notice there are two problems. Number one, this is very small. Do you see this? Like I can't really understand, read, debug my code this way. The second problem is that the name manager is used for other things as well, for giving names to cells. So I don't want to complicate it too much by having my Lambda and my names in the same place. So what do we have? If I go to home, you notice that we have this option called advanced formula environment on the top right corner. Now, you will not see this in your version of Excel. Why not? Because for the first time, you have to download and install it. How do we do that? I go to insert, I go to add-ins, I select the formula environment. Please watch. So I go to insert, I go to add-ins, and here I select the formula environment. Do you see this? We have the advanced formula environment. It's created by Microsoft themselves. And what does it say? It's a way of basically using Lambda functions, right? And this is not a complete programming IDE, an integrated development environment. This is a fantastic tool where you have a lot of features available with you. Let me show you. So when I select the advanced formula environment, you will notice that we get this pane that opens on the right side. And how cool is that? You see that the name called square that I had saved can be viewed here. And this has some other options as well. For example, if I want to create a new name, I can do it directly here. Let me just expand it. And here you have something called Intellisense, which is similar to other programming platforms. For example, see, when I write a letter, do you see what's happening? It's giving me all the different options I have starting with S. If I write an A, you see this, which is so cool. And if I go back to one of my original Lambda functions, you will notice that if I right click, there are a lot of options I have here. Look at this. I have change all occurrences. I have a command palette. Do you see this? Now, this is, of course, very handy when you have a very long formula. So if I show you this one, here you notice that I can just go and say, I want to add a cursor above and add a cursor below. Control Alt up arrow, Control Alt down arrow. Please watch. Let me turn off my red crosshair. Do you see this? How cool is that? This is very handy when you're writing these very long formulas because this allows you to have a vertical line. Do you see this? And see if everything is coming properly on. So these type of features are available in this advanced formula environment. Unfortunately, at the moment, you can only use the advanced formula environment for Lambda, not for regular Excel formulas, but I hope they add that feature going forward, right? Okay. The next thing I want to show you is, one moment. Just a moment. I seem to have deleted my sheet, but nevertheless, I do have a backup file with me as well. So if you allow me, let me quickly open my super examples. Right? This would be a more practical problem that all of you will be able to relate with, right? Please watch. Okay. So the problem I have is that I have something like this. Okay. Let me do it for you right now. Okay. Let me delete everything. Okay, check this out. Copy and paste. Now we have two lists with us. We have data for the previous month and we have data for the current month. What could be the use case for something like this? Number of them. Let us say in marketing, you're running a campaign and you want to see how many customers you had before the campaign and how many customers you have after the campaign. Or In the month of April, I again want to do a new list because I want to see how many customers are loyal customers. For example, if you have the Tata New app, right? So in apps, we measure something called daily active users. So any app, a Swiggy, a Zomato wants to see how many users are using the app on a daily basis. Now, for them, it's very important because they want to measure how many new users have joined the platform, how many old users are loyal and are still using the platform, and how many users are lost. That means they were using the platform yesterday, but they have stopped using the platform. In a finance use case, I might have two lists of products, and I want to see how many lists of these products have been updated or not, or that these are the vendors who had to make a payment, and these are the payments that have come. So I want to do a reconciliation to see how many of the payments have been received or not, right? Okay. Now think about it, what we want. I have a list of my old customers, and I want to see how many of these customers have repeated in the current month as well, right? So if you notice, Aaron Bergman has purchased in the current month, so he's a repeating customer. If you look at Justin Ritter, you will notice that Justin Ritter, everyone, has not purchased in the second month. So Justin is what we would refer to as a lost customers or a customer attrition. Similarly, if you look at Laurel and Jason are new customers because they haven't purchased in the previous month, but they have only purchased in the current month. So can somebody tell me how would I find this? For example, let's say I wanted to find my repeat customers. How do you think we will do that? Anyone?
I'll just give a try, Havish. If it's there in the previous month and not there in the current month, then you can say false. And if it's there in the previous month and current month, that could be true. And you could give a third judgment and it will give false, true and false. You may go ahead.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, that's broadly the process. The only problem is that if I end up doing it manually by creating additional columns and writing formulas and creating filters, it's going to take an awful lot of time. So what I would like to do is, first, I would like to teach you how to write the Excel formula. And second, I want to show you how we can save it as a Lambda so that it becomes easy for all the users to use. Okay, so please watch everyone. For the repeat customer, I will simply say that I'm doing a lookup. So I'm searching for Aaron in column C, which is column number 1 and exact match. Now, if you think about it, Aaron Bergman is coming. Why? Because Aaron Bergman is appearing in the current month as well. But if I do the same for the second name Justin, you notice we get an NA because Justin is not appearing in the current month list. So why not do this for all the customers in one go? So I'm selecting B19. Now, because we have dynamic arrays in Excel, I don't have to write a VLOOKUP and drag it down. I can apply a VLOOKUP on all the lookup values at the same time. So B5 to B90, and you notice we get a list like this. So let's think about what is happening. What is Aaron Bergman? Why is this name coming? Because Aaron Bergman is appearing in the second list. What about Aaron, Anthony, Magdalene, Vicky, Peter? They're all names that are appearing in the second list. But if you look at this area, everyone, which is Justin, Craig, Catherine, Rick, Jim, Toby, and Mick, these people are lost customers because they haven't purchased in the current month. How do I prove that to you? Imagine that Justin had purchased in the second month. So if I copy this somewhere in the second list, you notice that the name comes, right? So we know that the NAs are the people who are not purchasing in the second month. But who do we want? We are not interested in the people who are not purchasing. We are only interested in the people who are purchasing one more time. That means I want to remove all the NAs. I only want to keep the names. Now, most of you would be thinking, Havish, why can't we just apply a sort and filter and filter out the NAs? Because it's manual. You don't want to do that every single time. So very smartly, I will apply a filter function, right? So I will apply a filter function on my previous month. And we only want to see those values where the name is appearing, not the NA value. So what will happen is, do you see this? Just a moment. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm jumping a little far ahead. First, I have to convert all these values into true and false, right? Obviously. So I'll just use an is error because the is error will convert everything into true and false. But we want the opposite, right? We want to know the customers who are repeat, not the customers who are quitting the company. So we will use a not that will reverse the result. And I hope you see what the true signifies. The true, everyone, is a good thing. That means the customer is a repeat customer. The false is a bad thing. That means the customer is a exiting customer. Now, finally, I can just apply a filter on my names, and you notice it tells us that these are the repeat customers we have. And you might say, but Havish, why are the names repeating? Obviously, because one customer could have made multiple purchases. So we can also do a unique so that it only tells us who are the repeat customers. Now, see everyone, I'm not going to spend too much time on the formula as such. The reason is that I already have this on YouTube on my marketing analytics playlist. Let me share that with you. So if you notice here, I already have an open session and an entire 21-minute video where I explain this in a lot of detail. So I won't do this right now. I'll just share the playlist with you on the chat window. Great. But let's focus on the Lambda right now, okay? But before we do that, why not make it a little more complex? So what I'm doing is I already have my repeat. Let me do this for the lost customers as well, okay? It will just be a small variation, right? You can all practice it later, but I'm doing it a little quickly right now. I'm just copying my formula. And for the lost customers, all we are doing, everyone, is that we are saying that this not will be removed. And this way, what will happen is it will only tell us who are the lost customers. And you can verify it visually, right? You can notice that these are the customers, everyone, who have not purchased in the second month. And then what about the new customers? New customers is also very similar. The only difference this time is that we are doing a VLOOKUP on the current month. What is the table array? We're searching in the previous month, column number 1, and we're doing a false. Who do we want? We want to know wherever there is an NA coming, because that is referring to a new customer. So we will again do what we did before, which is an is error. We want to simply apply a filter, and we want to apply a filter on the current month. And you notice we get the result like this. So this is such a fancy way of getting the result, but this is the simplest way of doing it. A lot of you must be wondering, Havish, why are we making such complex formulas? Ask yourself, how else would you have done this? Some homework for you, go back and check that. But what about all customers? So I want to create a complete list of all the customers that we have ever had in the past. People who are repeat, people who are new, people who are lost, everything should be included, right? Like a complete list of customers. This is a slightly
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Is XLOOKUP?
Yeah, XLOOKUP is still be an alternative to a VLOOKUP. It would not really help me with this, but what we're doing here is a brand new function in Excel, everyone, called a VStack. Now, how VStack works is that in VStack, I simply select the two ranges. So we have list 1 and list 2. And the only thing left is we just have to apply a unique to it. And you notice it tells us that this is the complete list of customers who are either current customers, who are lost customers, or who are new customers, right? In fact, let me apply a unique here as well, because that will complete my formula. And we already have a unique here, right? Like this. But where's the Lambda? Like, this is so complex, right? We have to build 4 formulas. For the Lambda, what I'm going to do is something very smart. Please watch. I'm first going to copy all the 4 formulas, right? Right in front of you. Control C, Control C, Control C, and one more time, Control C. Okay. Now let's build our Lambda equal to Lambda. What are the 2 parameters? We have list underscore 1. We have list underscore 2. And we also want a third input that will be the type of the join that we want. That means what type of join are we trying to do? Similar to SQL, are we trying to do a full outer, an inner join, a left outer, a right outer, right? Now we use a switch statement, which is similar to an if statement. And we will say that our switch is our type join. That means that if the user has chosen repeat customers, which is repeat, then what should be the result? I just paste my formula here. So you notice I already have my formula here. The only difference is that I don't want to write B5, B19. I'll just replace everything with list underscore 1. And then this also becomes list underscore 1. And this becomes list underscore 2, right? Okay. One more time. If the person has chosen lost customers, then what will be the result? Then the result will be my second formula, which we have written manually. Here as well, we'll make a small change. So we have list underscore one. We have list underscore one. And we have list underscore two, right? And I know it's a little complex, but you will have to go back and practice this. But let's just complete it for now. Then I have my new customers, which are the third one, which is list underscore two comes the first time, right? And here also list underscore two comes the first time, and then we have list underscore one. And the final one, everyone, is that if the user is selecting all customers, then the result will be the VStack that we have kept. So this will be nothing but a unique VStack of list one, right, and list two. So I know it seems very complex when you look at the formula like this, but I hope you saw that I did not actually write the entire thing. I first wrote it in 4 different parts, and then we just combined everything together, right? Now let's see if it is working or not. Now we know how to test the formula. So I just put a parenthesis. I will select my list one like this. Then I select my list two like this. And then I will also write new like this. Hold on. And let me just make sure that I've done everything correctly. Okay, let's give it a shot. Because I actually already have the formula with me, but nevertheless, let me go to formulas and name manager. And I just want to call it my joins, right? And in my joins, we will put the formula here, right? Now it's okay if we get some error in the beginning because it is expected to be a little difficult, and when you do it in a hurry, mistakes do happen. But let me just check everyone. So I'm doing my joins, which I can't seem to see for some reason. Hold on. Strange. Joins, and then pasting this here. That's odd. Let me give it a different name, if that's okay. So I just call it my new join. And it is not allowing me to give the name. I'm wondering why. Hold on. Let me try this in a different workbook. And let's quickly do this. So new, and let's call this join, and we have a Lambda here. Yeah, I think there's some problem with the way I've written the formula. If that's okay, I would just like to check that and see what is the silly mistake that I'm making, because everything seems okay. Let me just go back and check here. And maybe if any of you can point it, that would be helpful as well. So I have a Lambda, I have a list underscore one, list underscore two type join. In a switch, we have a type join, then we have repeat, then we have unique filter, list one, not is zero, VLOOKUP, list one, list two, one false. That seems all right. Okay, and
Probably the brackets.
yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with the parentheses, but I'll still check that. So is there a VLOOKUP list one, list two, one, and we have false. This seems okay as well. And then we have new, and then we have list two, and then we have list two, list one, and then we have a VStack. I have a suspicion that the VStack is not yet working on this. So let me just check that. Because it's so brand new, there might be a possibility that the VStack is not supported yet. Anyway, I already have the solved answer, as you can see. So if it doesn't work, I'll show you that way. But let me try one more time and see if maybe that's the problem that we have. Yeah, I think so. I think the VStack is not yet supported. Anyway, let's see how it works now, everybody. And I hope it works now. Let's see. So I'm just writing new here. And if everything works as per plan, we should be able to simply write equal to new join, 3 parameters. What is list one? What is list two, the current one? And then what is the type join? We have new. Now you notice it gives us new customer. This is fantastic. Watch this. If I say, who are my lost customers? These are the lost customers. Who are all the customers? Okay, that would not work, obviously. And who are the repeat customers, which is this. How amazing is that? Now imagine the experience for the end user As a developer, as an analyst, as an employee, you are able to create something like this. See, somebody has to write the formula. That goes without saying. The purpose of Lambda is not for you to not have to write formulas. You still have to write formulas, but it becomes reusable. Like the client I was just speaking to in Dubai, that's a team of 1,500 people. There are lots of teams, there are lots of businesses. Imagine if I do a training for one team and I teach them how to write all of this. It's still so difficult because it's easy to make a mistake. If a new person joins the team or if they want to share the learning with a different person, it's so much more difficult, right? All we need to know is that there is a function called new join. We just have to put in the first list, the second list, and the type that we want. And voila, you get your answer, right? So yeah, any questions on this, anyone? Take a minute, think about it. Okay. Now, one more thing I wanted to share was that you can also use GitHub, which is a developer platform, if you want to save your Lambda codes, right? So the link is already here. I'm sharing it on the chat window as well, in case you want to have a look at this. Now, how this works is very simple. Let me just clean up everything. Okay. So GitHub is the world's largest developer platform for working on collaborative projects. So GitHub also has something called gists. A gist is a small piece of code. It's a snippet of code. And we can basically put a Lambda here. So as you can see, I have my account and I've created 22 different Lambda codes here. Let's pick one of these, right? Let me say end of quarter. I want to show you how to use it in your own Excel work. How do we do that? We just have to click on import and then put in the URL. How cool is that? Watch this. First, let me build a problem statement for everyone. If I give you a date and I ask you what is the end of the quarter, all of you will say, Havish, if you're sitting in September, then obviously the end of the quarter is 30th September. I get that. But how do you do that with a formula? For example, what if we had a 1st Feb as well? And what if I have a 22nd December as well? Ask yourself, how will you find out the end of the quarter? It's actually not that simple. Sure, if you want to find the end of the month, then I can do a EO month and get the end of the month. That would work. But how do you get the end of the quarter, right? Which would be 31st March, 30th June, 30th September, 31st December. So I have already written a Lambda here. So how do we work with that? Please watch. Okay. First, I go to my advanced formula environment. In this workbook, you notice that there are no Lambda codes. So if I go to formulas in name manager, you notice it's completely blank, right? So what do we do? I will hop over to my URL. So I'll just select end of quarter. I'll just copy the URL here, Control C, come back. I'll click on the import button. I'll put in my GitHub URL and I will just import it. How cool is that? So the entire formula comes. How do you sync it with the name manager? Because right now you notice it is not appearing in your name manager. So I just click on this button called sync. It takes a second and now it appears in the name manager. And that's it. Watch this, equal to end of quarter. Now the person doesn't need to learn anything. They don't need to know what is a EO month, what is a mod, why are we doing a 3 minus month, right? All they have to do is end of quarter and get the end of quarter, right? So this is a beautiful, seamless way of sharing your Lambda with other people. So basically as an organization or as a developer or as an individual, you can just put everything on GitHub and share the URL with everybody else, right? Any questions so far, anyone? I know there's a lot to digest and because it keeps on changing so often, there's a lot to learn. Like the thing where I showed you where VStack is not supported. You might say, Havish, how am I supposed to know if the VStack will work or not? It's just one of those things, right? Where because this is my bread and butter, this is something I do on a daily basis. That's why you notice I have so many of these examples I've already created on Lambda. Let me just show you one of these. I think you will really like it. Let's say you want to unpivot a data set, right? That means the data has already been given in a pivot table format, but you want to do the opposite. You want to convert it into a normal data set. Either you do this on Power Query, but then you're breaking the process, right? Power Query means you can't write a formula for it. So what we are doing here is either you have to write this long formula, and it's a very complex formula where I'm using let, offset, text join, index, repeat, filter XML, or we can save it as a Lambda and we just have an unpivot. How cool is that? Let's say you want to extract 3 parts of the name: the first name, the middle name, the last. First name and last name are still simple, but when you have a middle name, it becomes very complex. So what have I done here? I basically said extract name. So you notice if I say 1, it gives me the first name, 2 gives me the middle name, 3 gives me the last name. There's something I did very recently was this one. There's a data set. You want to insert blank rows after each row. Seems like a simple thing. It's actually not that simple because usually we do it manually, right? Like this. So you press Ctrl Shift plus and then shift it down. There really isn't a formula that you can try to do, isn't it? But see, I've actually built it. So I've built a function called insert blank rows. I've been able to insert blank rows just using one single formula. How cool is that? Now see, a lot of work that used to happen on VBA can now be shifted over to Lambda as well. Because see, VBA is still difficult to write and difficult to explain to others because it's programming. Lambda, on the other hand, is still Excel formula. So it's still easier for people to follow the entire working that happens behind it, right? Yeah, I have a playlist on YouTube as well, where a lot of these have been covered. So you can have a look at that if you want to. Just one really complex topic I wanted to end up with, which is on recursion. Right? So recursion, again, is a computing term, which means it's a technique that is used to create a function that calls itself until the program achieves the desired result. It's really hard to explain what it is if you haven't come from a programming background, but I'll try my best. Imagine that you have a string like this. So we have ABC, an ampersand, a D hash E, a dollar sign. Now there are 3 things I don't want. I don't want the ampersand, I don't want the hash, I don't want the dollar sign. So I want the final result like this. Now, if you wanted to remove only one character, it is very simple. What do I write? I will simply say substitute. And I will say that in C6, I want to remove the ampersand and replace it with a blank, isn't it? And you notice that it removes it. But what if I want to remove the hash as well? Now I'll again have to do one more substitute. And I'll again have to say, okay, now I want to remove the hash and replace that with a blank. But then this is working, but it's not very practical because right now I only want to remove 3 characters, for which I have to write substitute 3 times. What if there was a text string from which I wanted to remove 15 characters? While it's possible, it's not very practical. So what we are doing here is we are creating a recursion formula like this. Anyway, let me first show the formula. So you notice that we have taken a string, which is C6, the characters which we want to remove, which is C7, and then the substitute, which means what do we want to replace it with, which is a blank. Now, the way it works is that, look at this part. I am substituting in my string left characters. That means the first character, which is a and an ampersand. So far, so good. And what do I want to replace it with? I want to replace it with a blank. So far, what has happened is that in this string, I have just removed the and. Everyone, okay so far? But this is not enough because I want to again go back, run a loop, and now I want to remove the hash as well. So what am I doing here? I'm also reducing one character from my characters to remove. So you notice that mid characters to length minus 1. So basically, I'm also removing this first character here. And why am I repeating the entire process? Because my characters is not equal to blank. I still have 2 characters remaining. So what do we do the second time? I again say in my string, I want to remove the hash. And in the middle, I want to remove the first character like this. We again run it a third time. The third time, I will remove the dollar and this becomes blank. But when I'm trying to run it a 4th time, what will happen is that it will say, Havish, now your characters doesn't exist because your characters have been removed, all of them, one by one. Now, because my characters have become blank, it will escape and it will just give me the result, which is ABCDE. It will not repeat the process because there's nothing to repeat. All my characters have been removed. So the basic idea of recursion is that we are not actually doing everything at the same time. We are running a loop so that I am able to remove the and, then the hash, then the dollar sign. But I'm keeping a counter, I'm keeping a check, which is here. I'm checking, have all the characters been removed? So in the beginning, we had 3 characters we wanted to remove. Then we had 2, then we had 1, then we had 0. When the characters became 0, I said, okay, now my job is done. Now show me the final result. No need to do this. Just to show you how differently it would have worked, imagine if I said my characters is equal to, not equal to blank. If my characters is equal to, let's say, a dollar sign, right? Please watch. So in my remove characters, if I just say that my characters is equal to a dollar sign, one moment. If my characters is equal to a dollar sign, now what will happen is that I do want to change it. Okay, but you see this, the dollar remains. This means I'm telling Excel that keep on removing every character. So remove the and, remove the hash, till you find the dollar sign. The moment you find the dollar sign, stop and give me the result. Don't remove anything after that, right? So this is how everyone you can modify. The topic is very difficult because I don't come from a programming background, even though I have been programming for the last 8 years or so. But the thing is that I do not come from a educational qualification of a programmer. I'm a commerce student with a BBA and an MBA in marketing. For me, there are a lot of gaps in my knowledge. So while I'm an expert VBA coder, I was also a 40 under 40 analytics. The point is that recursion is not really something I have done a lot, right? While this might be something a first year BTech or a CSC student learns, not something I have personally learned. Hence, I also had to do a lot of reading and really spend time, sit back, get a whiteboard or an A4 sheet, take all the time in the world that you want. Try to understand it from 4-5 different places and do not give up until and unless you understand it 100%. The moment you say, I think I'm okay with it, but let's move on, that's a bad idea. Do not move on unless and until you are 100% thorough with the topic. Sure, clarity will only come with time and with practice, but broadly, you should say, okay, I have the confidence that I can go back and explain this to somebody else as well, right? The way we are doing this. So yeah, this was one of the more advanced topics in Lambda, everyone. And don't be surprised if moving forward, we have many, many more things that get added and very crazy things that people are able to do. Because that's just what the tool has empowered people to do. What developers were capable of earlier, which the regular Excel user could not do. Now, I would still say that you need to know programming to be able to do Lambda because it requires logical thinking. And if you're not a programmer, then it's very hard to sort of wrap your head around it. But as you can see, this is something I had just started teaching to clients because most of my clients now have the Lambda function with them. These are very early days. Hence, my suggestion to all 6 of you is that please start learning right now. If you go around you and start asking people, 99 out of 100 people will tell you, I haven't even heard of it. But that shouldn't stop you because this is going to have a huge impact going forward, right? Needless to say, whether that happens in a year or 3 years, I can't say how much time it would take, but it is going to become an important part of every Excel developer. And somebody who knows Lambda will always have an upper edge compared to you, no matter how good you are with Excel. If you do not know Lambda, you will hit a ceiling because you can never work as efficiently as somebody who knows how to work with Lambda, right? So yeah, so very quickly, what all we have covered is very big deal came last year, only available in Microsoft 365. It's not unique to Excel. It's available on other programming languages as well. The basic idea is that you create a function, your name. You can reuse it many times wherever you want. And the best part is no programming required, right? How do you save it? You save it in the name manager, or you can also create it in the advanced formula environment and save it in a GitHub gist, right? And you can import it from there as well. After that, I also covered one slightly detailed example, which was this one, where we wanted to find different types of joins, and we also saw recursion, right? Perfect. Any questions, anyone, that I can answer on this?
Hi, Havish. So recursion is sort of a looping.
Yeah, it's like a loop only.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So like once the loop is set, and can we remove the delimiters? Like we can mention the delimiters as 4 or 5 of them, and then do a flash fill. Is
See,
it
a flash fill will still be a manual operation.
right?
No,
Right.
I'm sorry. Can you just repeat what is it that you are saying?
So there is a possibility in Power BI we can unpivot the columns by selecting the other 2 columns and unpivot it in Power BI.
Sure.
Similarly, so like in recursion is looping. So like once we have like formed the loop, and so the same code which is used for recursion looping, like if it's ABCDE, so if there's DCEGB with the parameters, and so if we directly do a flash fill for the next chain of variables.
No, not like that. Because these are formulas, right? And Flash will never work with formulas because
No, that I'm aware of. So is there a condition like, on the right click of a column, remove all delimiters? Like if like just select the column and remove all delimiters, like all of them, will it remove everything?
yeah, I mean, you can do that in Power Query. So Power Query had a
Power
text
query,
dot
correct.
remove or a text dot select.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can use that. So for everybody else's sake, in Power Query, if you say a text dot, I'm not sure if it's remove or delete, but anyway, basically in Power Query, you can just put in a curly bracket and you can say something like A dot Z. That removes everything from A to Z, So you can just Google that. Or you can also make an array of values. So you can say I want these 7 values to be removed at the same time. But again, the reason it's still important to learn Lambda is because while everyone Power Query is a part of Excel, it breaks the flow. Because for Power Query, you can't really integrate it with other Excel formulas. The beauty here is that I can do a remove characters, and then I can also find the length from the remove characters. So I can combine it with other native Excel functions that I have. In Power Query, the problem is you'll have to break your Excel formula, do something in Power Query, bring it back, and then again resume the process, right?
Definitely. Multiple processes. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Great. Anything else, anyone? So I hope this quick, 45-minute session gave you an idea in terms of what Lambda is and why it's such a big deal. So there's a lot of content available on the internet as well, on my channel and on other channels. So make sure to go and have a look. A year back, content was very limited because people had just started working with it. Today, if you go online and if you search for Lambda on Excel, you're going to find hundreds of articles and thousands of videos on it, right? So there's no dearth of content on it. So definitely make sure to, spend some time on it. I'm basically asking you to learn something for the future, but then this is something you will thank me a few years later. If you start learning now, it is going to take you quite a lot of time to get the hang of it because it just keeps on updating so often. So make sure to at least start, I would of course want you to learn it in detail, but at least start somewhere. Don't wait for clients and your companies to start asking you, because by that time there will be so much more content that you will have to start, right? Perfect. Excellent. So thank you everybody for joining in. If there are no more questions, then we can wrap up. Once again, apologies for joining in a little late today. And this video will be there on YouTube. And keep in mind that I have a lot of other videos on YouTube as well that cover Lambda functions. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, sir.
Sure. Please tell me.
Sorry, sir. I joined a bit late.
No problem.
In the past 15 minutes. So, I have a question. Whether you would be launching any course on this Lambda thing?
So I already have a course on dynamic arrays. If I can just show you. So
yeah,
in my Excel bundle,
sir.
I have a course on dynamic arrays, and the dynamic arrays course already has Lambda in it, even though it's not in detail. But yes, I am planning to launch a separate course on Lambda so that I don't have to mix it up with other topics. So most likely it will happen, maybe in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. And one more thing, sir. I saw a video on YouTube, which the instructor was using Lambda to create a depreciation schedule with a formula.
Yeah, I can't comment on that because I don't exactly know what that looks like, but
yeah.
But yeah, there is a group called Excel Lambda discussions. So here you notice the crazy type of people, the type of content that people are creating. Just let me give you an example. Just check this out. Look at the type of things people are creating on Lambda. It's almost unbelievable. These are some of the best, smartest people in the world. And if you look at, so Hakan also creates a lot of content. I mean, this is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's not just complex for the sake of being complex, but also in terms of, what it does. Absolutely amazing. You should definitely have a look. It's called the Excel Lambda discussions.
Yeah, and that's what amazed me to learn about this thing.
I'm sorry?
I'm saying when I saw this thing, I mean, creating a entire what I would say depreciation schedule using a formula that was so amazing, and I was looking for content on this, but
Yeah,
it
see,
was
I
pretty
mean,
limited. I was saying.
I really can't comment on that because I'm not sure what the Lambda was doing. Maybe it was referring to a named range. Maybe there were some other parameters. Maybe there were multiple Lambdas that were calling each other. So it would not be possible for me to comment on that unless I
No, no,
see how.
no. I was just sharing my curiosity. I mean, my excitement. I mean, what we can achieve with this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. So once you start reading
Yeah.
these groups and these discussions, I am amazed to see, look at all this that people are creating. Number of overlapping days between two periods. I mean, this is unbelievably complex and so helpful for financial work, right? Something we used to do manually or with very complex formulas, we're able to do it now. So you should definitely have a look.
Sure.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you for other sessions.
Thank you.